Hello friends, welcome to UPSC Logics and my name is Siddharth and today I'm going to discuss the Congress League Pact of 1916. So in 1907 we had seen that during the Surat session that was held on the banks of river Tapti under the presidency of AC Majumdar, the Congress had split into two between the moderates and the extremists, and the extremist leaders had been objecting to the nomination of the moderates for the president of the Congress session, which was Ras Bihari Ghosh, and they actually really wanted to twist the moderates into accepting the four resolutions that had been passed in 1906 during the Calcutta session under the presidency of Dadabhai Naroji. So during the session, a shoe was thrown at Firoz Shah Mehta and Surendranath Banerjee, and that was the end of the session, and police was called in. And we had seen that after this particular session, the Congress was split into moderates and extremist leaders, and the government really came hard after the extremist leaders, Tilak and other important leaders, were put in jail. Tilak was sent to Mandalay jail for 6 years and he was released in 1914, after which in 1915-16 he formed the Home Rule League movement with Mrs. Annie Besant. And the Congress session of that was held in Lucknow in 1916 is of great importance because this was the year when the extremists and the moderates came together, and they also signed a pact with the Muslim League that is also known as the Congress League Pact of 1916. And this particular pact ultimately sowed seeds of communalism into the psyches of the Congress as well as the Muslim leaders, which led to the ultimate partition of the country in 1947. So let us have a look at some of the important facts that are related to the Congress League Pact of 1916 and what were the main features of this pact. Now let us have a look at the background of the Congress Muslim Pact. And this particular pact was signed in the Congress session of Lucknow in 1916 under the presidency of AC Majumdar. So we know that this was also the session in which the moderates and the extremist leaders came together once again. And this particular pact was considered to be an important step towards the Hindu-Muslim unity, and this happened mainly due to Tilak's efforts. So it was Tilak's efforts who really wanted the Hindus and Muslims to unite for a common cause, and therefore he signed this particular pact with the Muslim League. Now the intention of Tilak was to bring the Hindus and Muslims together against the British, or to bring them on a common platform to make certain demands from the British. So the idea was to demand for some common scheme of political reforms from the British, and they were actually able to get them in the Montfort reforms of 1919. Now the biggest issue with this whole idea of the scheme was that it was based on the acceptance of communal electorate by the Congress. So the Muslim League actually arm twisted the Congress in doubling the representation in the Muslim minority states and with a slight loss in the Muslim majority states. They were also able to secure one-third of the total seats in the center, and these were separate from the Muslim constituencies. So the Muslim League actually signed a pact where they realized that they could arm twist the Congress into making reservations of seats both in the Muslim minority states as well as in the center. So most of these principles were incorporated in the Montfort-Chelmsford reforms of 1919, which we shall have a look at a later stage. But the intention of this pact was Hindu-Muslim unity, and what it did was to basically sow seeds of differences between the Hindus and Muslims, and the Britishers knew that these were the causes, or this reservation of seats would ultimately lead to the Hindu and Muslim divide, and they were very shrewd, and therefore they actually introduced these principles in the Montfort-Chelmsford reforms of 1919. So let us now understand the significance of this pact. And although this was considered to be a solution to the Hindu-Muslim problem, and Tilak really thought that this would bring the Congress and the League on the same footing against the British, and they were able to demand some common political reforms from the British. So the Congress, in its goodwill, agreed to certain conditions, as we have seen, that doubling the seats in the Muslim minority areas and one-third reservation of seats in the center. So what this actually did in retrospect was to create disharmony between the two, which was the Congress and the League. And at a later stage, the Muslim League leaders became dissatisfied with the conditions that they had put forward and with the reservation of seats because they thought that these were too less. And on the other hand, the Hindus had unintentionally agreed to the demand of a separate nation in considering that Muslims were a separate identity and they therefore needed reservation of seats to represent the community. So friends, this brings us to the end of this video on the Congress Muslim League Pact of Lucknow 1916, and I hope you have understood the important nuances. Basically, there were a few features of this pact. Number one was that it was the brainchild of Tilak, who wanted to bring the Hindus and Muslims on the same footing. And number two was that the Muslim League was able to get double the reservation in the Muslim minority areas and one-third reservation in the center besides the other constituencies. And this was actually the starting of the communal electorate things, and the British were shrewd enough to incorporate them in the Montfort-Chelmsford reforms of 1919. So we have seen here that the whole League Pact was basically nothing but the seeds of discontentment that were sown in this particular session that later grew into the tree of partition in 1947. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you have enjoyed this video and understood the topic. Thank you so much for watching, and if you are watching it for the first time, do like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to get the latest notifications from UPSC Logics. Thank you so much for watching, and Jai Hind.